discussing child and family mental health. So, in this particular series, I will be calling experts and then we will be having discussions with them about the same thing. During the lockdown, we all have realized the importance of mental health and the importance of the professionals who are involved in it. Still, I can see that not many of us are aware about the role of all the professionals who are usually involved in mental health. So I would like to take this opportunity for introducing different professionals. Uh, Today we have Dr. Srihar Jagirdar with all of us. Welcome, Dr. Srihar Jagirdar. So Dr. Srihar Jagirdar is a renowned OTist working at hospitals and clinics of Mumbai. He holds more than 10 years of experience in this field. During lockdown and even otherwise, he's worked closely with All India Occupational Therapists Association. He is a clinician with ACE and has a good and is also a good academician. His area of interest is children with special needs. He is a PhD scholar. It is a
Yeah,
pleasure to
hi
have you
Sonali.
with us. Hello. So, sir, can you please tell us what is occupational therapy?
In a very simple terms, occupational therapy is any kind of intervention, may it be physical, cognitive, emotional, psychological, social, which is driven towards improving people engagement in their occupations. Here, by that we mean occupations is all that we do in our day-to-day life which is meaningful to us and which is purposeful to us. So that is termed as occupation in context of occupational therapy. So may it be any physical ailment or psychological distress which will have an implication on our day-to-day life and our role, occupational role. By that, what I mean is, I am a doctor, you are a psychologist, you are at the same time a daughter, I am a son, I am a brother. So we play a different occupational roles in day to day life, which are again meaningful and purposeful to us. So any kind of disease, illness, or any kind of event which poses a threat to our occupation as well as hampers our experience as an able-bodied person in the society is a condition warranted for an occupational therapy intervention. So what we usually say is occupational therapy is from womb to tomb. So we any kind of diseases right from the childhood to the adulthood, which poses difficulty in our day-to-day living, is a part of our intervention.
Mhm. It's very interesting that you said that occupational therapy is about social and psychological and even other difficulties as well. Because often occupational therapy is linked with physiotherapy, and then the belief is that now occupational therapy is also emphasizing on physical health only. So, would you mind giving us one example how the other aspects of life are also, touched upon by occupational therapy?
So what happens is occupational therapy was started during World Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and it was started before physiotherapy. Basically, occupational therapy was considered for soldiers who had lost more than their limbs and life in the war. So they were confused about what. So it all started with art and craft movements, and then people finding importance of occupation. And there was much more than just healing them physically. Okay, so hence few scholars in the field of psychology or humanity came up together to formulate this later on this field of science which is based on human occupation. So basically the whole idea, the whole difference you might say of physical therapy and occupational therapy is like physical therapy was born out of occupational therapy for those who had wanted short-term treatment plan, or we as an occupational therapist we look into more than the difficulties the patient has. more than his pain, more than his ailments. We look as a person, and the whole surroundings that he is into, how it how is it being affected because of this disease or a disorder. So we just go beyond the cause of the discomfort, and we try to integrate that person back into his previous level of functioning.
Mhm.
Okay, so if somebody has lost a job because of alcoholism, or if a child is not able to attend regular schooling because of ADHD, we see to it that we just do not treat that child. We also try to change the way he studies, change way the tools that his writing devices needs to change. So we take a lot of dynamics into consideration while we actually formulate our occupational therapy program. So it's quite distinct in uh, terms of what we do as an occupational therapist, which might overlap with physical therapy, but the way to look at the problem is definitely different. So, like we always put an example, like how an orthopedic surgeon as well as a neurosurgeon will operate on a spine case. But in both the things, the outcome differs or the way it is done differs. So, it's just the same.
Okay, thanks for elaborating because usually when we talk about child and family mental health, the first people who sort of come to our mind are maybe psychologists, counselor, max to max psychiatrists, but we do not often come to think about occupational therapists. So it is a very good chance, I can say, that we can reach out to people and we will be able to maintain the or explain the importance of this therapy. So, in answering two of my questions, you have also sort of answered about how the process usually goes. So, would you like to elaborate it more in terms of how many weeks or how many months usually the treatment is given to a client?
Right. So I would like to talk about how we devise an occupational therapy program. So it all starts with observation.
Mhm.
Like the greatest tool that occupational therapists have is activity analysis, like analyzing what the child is doing, where the child is doing what, and how the child is doing, and an immense amount of skills we develop in history taking and building up a rapport with the fan. So basically, the person who has a problem or a disability or a difficulty is not our only focus of intervention. The focus is his milieu, the place in which the child shows these deficits.
Mhm.
So the child himself, in case if we are talking about child with difficulties, so child himself, his teachers, his family members, his friends, his house, his schooling, his desk, his gadgets, everything that comes into. So what we do is gather a lot of information about how the dynamics of everything is taking place. So we assess the child, we assess the environment of the child, and we assess how the child is performing a particular task in which he has problem. So after we gather all this information, we then try to kind of devise a program which is one accepted by the child himself, feasible by the family to be implemented, and it definitely paves the way for development of a child. So it is not just child centric, it is the system centric. Okay, so we just cannot. I always give this example, like if you have studied everything, huh, and you go for an exam and you get a paper which has a question of out of syllabus, so you would not blame yourself for not studying. So I always give this example to the parents. They're like, let's just not concentrate of child having a problem. Let's also try to change the ways and means by which we interact with the child, we intervene with the child, and how we can use bioengineering, like the concept of designing and disabled friendly gadgets or adaptive devices that an occupational therapist is well versed with. So then we all discuss, we sit together and have a very individualized program for each and every child. And then comes the follow up. We keep on following up our child's development either on regular basis or on a consultation basis. And the most important part is the participatory approach. Like we want the parents to participate in the whole program and give us more insight about how the child is doing. So it to summarize the whole process of occupational therapy, it's observational, it's participatory, it is very individual, and it is unique in terms that we use a lot of principles from various different areas of sciences, maybe bioengineering, ergonomics, psychology, and our very own occupational science, like using occupation or using activities as a means to assess as well as a means to treat. Okay, so we observe a child while doing an activity. Also, we give activities to the child wherein he can improve on his whole system. So this, I mean, what we call it as an holistic treatment approach.
That's wonderful, Dr. Sriharsh. I'm sure that our audience will be thrilled to know about this field, and I'm sure many of them will be contacting more and more occupational therapists after hearing your interview. So, I would like to go ahead with the next question, which is how OT is helpful in overall family mental health right now in this lockdown period.
Yeah. So, as it's all been challenging for us to deliver services, it's been really difficult for families of children with special needs to seek therapy. Because most of the children in early ages, like early intervention phase, when we talk about the child below 7 years of age, they must be all attending to regular occupational therapy sessions. But due to lockdown, it's not been feasible. But as we say, occupational therapists are taskmasters. We find a way to reach out. Okay, so we had definitely we use the tele rehab platform, and currently what we do is transfer our knowledge base to the parents. So parents become like paratherapists. So they assist us in getting what we desire out of the kid. So yes, it is being taxing on parents, to some parents who find it difficult to manage, but more or less it is more rewarding during this lockdown. Like we occupational therapists, as we said, we always have a participatory approach, and we devise the program in such a way that it is not a burden, and it just goes as a matter of fact way, and is incorporated into a day-to-day activities. So during the lockdown, what most of the parents felt was difficulty with schooling, or anxiety about schooling, whether anxiety about not seeking therapy. But as we occupational therapists have alternatives for each and every problem, we came up with. I mean, also we try to counsel the parents that this time is just not right time to maybe develop skills. We need to see that we maintain skills right now. We don't lose what we have gained. Maybe we don't gain additional focuses or whatever goals that we have set for the child. Most important is to maintain the psychological well-being of the child, because child will be disturbed. Most of us are disturbed, and we express it in terms. Children with cognitive disabilities, children with autism will find it difficult to express it freely. So, what first line of help or first line of therapy that we do is making the parents understand that what the children are going through is just what we are going through. Maybe the intensity and the expression is different. The second line is making child comfortable in the current situation by increasing his insights to the situation as well as to his or her own problem. And third is teaching the parents to handle kids efficiently, giving them the program, exercises, or suggestions which can be incorporated easily into the day to day dealings. So this is how we have been helping. Like for example, we have activities like sandwich making, and then we modify how to make a sandwich. Give him a cut tomatoes if he cannot cut, or maybe use smashing of potatoes, and as simple as drying the clothes, or as simple as helping the mom in the kitchen or arranging this thing, whatever is at the level of the child and the child's interest to participate in.
Mm-hmm. That is
And
very
we have got amazing results. There are amazing parents who have been really involved, and they all are so happy because we have got grandfathers during this time. So
Mhm.
we had this me time, part time, and ma time in our program. So like what should the father, how much time should the father spend, how much time should the mother spend, and it was amazing. Like I know of a family whose father used to always travel, and because of lockdown was at house for a long time, and they gelled up so amazingly, and the child showed such an amazing response and development in this 3 or 4 months. So yeah, so that works. Like individualized therapy and individualized program really helps
Mhm.
get our goals.
It is very amazing to see that how occupational therapy has individualized plan, but at the same time, the whole family is going to be involved. As you said, there is me time, but at the same time, there is ma time and pa time as well. And as you mentioned, now family members are having more time at home. So it is beautiful the way you have involved them in the development of the child. So, my next question is, are there any tips which our audience can sort of try to include in their daily life so that the child and overall family mental health is kept intact?
Yeah, because yeah, this is a very important question because as I said, when I advocate the child with disabilities and that parents should take care of them or whatever, at the same time we cannot forget that we all as individuals are going through our own phase of life, which is not which was unforeseen. So there is a dual burden of coping with our own selves, our own emotions during these difficult times. To continue being occupational, to continue being productive in whatever way, like working from home or having no maids, so trying out new recipes, and at the same time raising a kid, any kid for that matter, is a difficult because the child is not involved in any kind of formal educational pursuits or going to school or stuff like that. The parents would find it difficult to keep the child engaged and reduce the boredom. So the best technique to combat this is acknowledgement. Like acknowledge that the child is feeling bored. Acknowledge that I am not able to take care of the child at this point of time. Like I am burnt out. So
Mm-hmm.
when so again we say like me time is very important. May it be a child, may it be a parent. So I had gone to an extent to explain to the parents that you need to exercise for yourself, you need to groom up for yourself. Like as simple tips like in the evening, like have a party at the home, and so you dress up, all of you dress up as a party at home. So you have a candlelight dinner at home. So and believe me, the parents who are really wanting to make a difference, they usually imply this, and they feel it's rewarding to see how they evolve. So maybe we have suggested one or two, but they implement like three and four and also have an amazing result. So what happens is we give the direction and the process is set by themselves. And since it happens in their own premise and in their own close knit, the effects are overwhelming. The effects are much more than what we really expect. So, to answer your question again, to come back to your question, key tips how family can do is first, as I said, acknowledging that we cannot be productive, we cannot be best mothers, best fathers all the time. Okay, so giving a washout. So at this point of time, I'm not able to concentrate. Let's talk about it after 10 minutes. So giving them lots of time. Channelizing is also one important thing, like channelizing aggression or channelizing challenging behaviors into some form of socially acceptable behaviors. For example, the child is angry, so just before you know that the child is getting angry, maybe some kind of a pillow fight or some kind of physical resistive activity, which can be incorporated so that the anger is channelized in a more socially acceptable manner. So for older kids, what we say is do an arm wrestling, do a push pull or a theravine pull, so that the child diverts his energy and then everything settles down quickly. Still, at times there are challenges. There are, especially for children who are severely autistic, they take a little time, and there are parents who are constantly facing the challenge, but then yeah, it's part and parcel of the whole game.
Mm-hmm. So, would you say that it is different for families who are having children with disabilities than the families who are not having any person with disabilities? So, how can we sort of change these tips for the other families than what you have mentioned?
Um, so yeah, basically, this is a great time when actually parents of any maybe special kids or this thing go more into the interests of the child. So it's a very nice time actually. Four months is a good amount of time to develop an hobby. Because as the most effective coping strategy we always talk in occupational therapy is an inner drive. When the child thinks that this is helping him and combats his or her own stresses using that strategy, that lasts for long. So, what is my one takeaway for all the parents in general? To seek for an interest in the child, develop an hobby which is a stress buster. Like for me, during this lockdown, like not being always on the toes, like from 7:30 to night 10 o'clock, and I was like nothing to do. So I learned skills. So I was always having an hobby of art and craft, and I actually took up online classes which were on Instagram or maybe on Udemy or wherever to develop those skills, and that became my coping strategy, and I'm coping well. And yeah, so uh, understanding where actually the coping strategies lies in the child and what can really help the child to develop more stronger coping mechanisms which are driven from within than just giving him good food or whatever is just a temporary phase of phenomena. Actually developing the child, involving himself or herself in the process of healing healing self is more what you say, more stronger than just giving an external feedback or an external input or extrinsic rewards like chocolates or piggy bank and stuff like that.
Right. I think this is a very important point because at times most of us try to enforce things on children that okay, drawing is good for you, so engage in drawing. Watching this particular video will be very helpful for you, so watch this video. So here you are trying to say that understand child more in more details, and then on the basis of child's interest, then you can take it ahead, and that will be more helpful. So it is very good point, and
Right.
I hope our audience is able to understand and implement the same. So, sir, next, what I want to ask is, as we have been talking about child and family mental health, and mostly it happens that about these topics, adults are the ones who are watching these videos. So here we would like to involve children as well. So if given a chance, is there anything that you would like to say directly to the children right now?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah.
I
So
couldn't hear.
yeah.
Yeah, for children who understand, so there are ways and means to get into their, dynamics of how they are, forming a meaning about what helps and what helps. So, what tip I can give to a child is to one express without the fear of being dejected. So, express whatever the child is feeling is very important. Okay, so since home is a safe place for expression, the child should, venture out better communication skills with the parents and the caregivers, so that there is a kind of exchange of ideas, and then it becomes simpler for even the adults to understand what exactly is happening in the child. Also, as I said, developing an hobby is very important. Okay, so having this free expression of unconscious thoughts or what we call as projection through any form of arts or any form of exercises or any form of dance is very helpful. And child should have one or the other hobby, because later on it becomes therapeutic. Like as we said, I mean, I was good at drawing in childhood, and now it is helping me as an adult to diverse from the anxieties or this thing of the newer world. So also for a little older kids, being a part of a family is also very helpful. So considering a meaningful role that I am a son of this family, I am a daughter of this family, and I have some responsibilities. So like helping my mother, helping my father, or just helping myself is also very important. And self reliance or self dependency. So, things that the child can manage, have learned, so that, um, again, as I said, when we do what we know and when we keep doing it, we have this sense of security that, yes, I can do this, or I am independent in doing this, and hence we can challenge ourselves for a higher level of skills. So, when the child starts doing things by self or becomes self-dependent, the repertoire of skills improves, and that is kind of transferred in other areas. So if when I talk about children to be engaged in kitchen tasks, their organization skills, their sensory integration about smell, taste, texture all improves, and this is going to have a positive implication on their academics as well as the mood and concentration at large. And the brain starts understanding how to organize things, how to see things in a more planned order.
Yes. So, Dr.
Yes.
Srihars, I have one question that when we are admitting to any therapist, so when we are entering into occupational therapy, what are the factors that usually the good therapist is cognizant of?
A very nice question, actually. The therapist should be cognizant about one, his or her own skills. He should be comfortable with what he is going to do with the child. So there are a lot of different techniques, like there are cognitive techniques, there are sensory integrative techniques, there are neurodevelopmental techniques. But the therapist should be cognizant about his or her own skills first. Second, the need and the culture of the family that we are intervening. So, making utilization of the available resources given in the cultural context, and it should be considering both human and non-human elements in the therapy. Like human elements are their caregivers, teachers, how feasible it for them to implement whatever you're suggesting, and non-human is like the place of where the child should play, the type of equipment the child should use, the type of pencils, pens that the child should use, the type of buttons that the child should be putting on, all that. So the therapy, especially when I take a lockdown into consideration and using tele rehabilitation as a mode of intervention during this lockdown, the therapist must understand that using whatever resources is readily available, whatever interests the child, and it fits into the repertoire of day-to-day activities of the family. It should not add a additional burden to it. So the therapist should be cognizant about which activity, when it can be taken, and where it can be taken, and by whom it can be taken, so that there's a good memory formed at the end of it, and the child really enjoys the process. At the same time, develops the skill needed to perform that activity. So the good memory or a good experience, a successful experience on one task will pave a way for child's participation, improving child's participation in the subsequent challenging tasks.
Okay. So, sir, I can see that there is some part of the therapy which takes place in the clinic, and there is still some part which is happening at home, which is usually called as home program by a lot of therapists. So, can you please elaborate how these are different?
Yeah. So when we see a child in a clinic, we do a hands-on therapy, and when we give some kind of activities to be done by parents, it's called as home program. So how is it different? When we are using techniques on the child, we are working on the child's body at that particular time in an environment which is made up, which is made safe.
Mm-hmm.
A clinic is a made safe environment for a child. So we take into consideration all safety. But when we develop these skills in the confines of the clinic, the development can be short lived if it is not transferred into a day-to-day life. Okay, in the real life, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am working on child's fine motor by giving him bead stringing or clay activity, I expect that these skills are transferred into real time skills like tying shoelaces, buttoning, unbuttoning, cutting the packet of the biscuits. So that becomes the part, the final expected outcome of the skill is the function itself. So that becomes a part of home program. So, so the specific techniques that the therapist is versed in has to be transformed into a doable practice at home by the parents.
Okay, okay. So I see that parents are playing an important role in bringing the change which we are aiming at. So certainly it is not just that I take my child to the clinic and I expect that therapist will do the therapy and then it will be done. So it is definitely not like that, right?
Yeah. So I always say because a therapist sees a child for 45 minutes and rest of 23 hours and 15 minutes is the child with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
So we are just kind of a sample of a child's skill building routine. But the whole onus, I guess, should be as a participatory approach as a team. The
Mm-hmm.
whole onus should be the child is the manager and we are all just kind of, he's a hired employees.
Helpers.
So the
Mm-hmm.
child drives the therapy and that all of us are equal stakeholders in the whole thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it is not जाए कि therapist के पास गया तो अभी खत्म अभी मेरा काम हो गया. So there are a lot of parents like they kind of judiciously take their children to the therapy every single day, but fail to practice the home program or fail to transfer those skills in a real time situation. So compliance is very important. So what happens with compliance is the child is constant. So it's a neurology. So the more you practice, the more you repeat a particular task in the real context, so you learn better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you start eating at a clinic. You start then incorporating it in in the house and the restaurant and then in the parties. So the it goes on and so forth and moves ahead. So compliance is very important so that the therapist works, selects the few set of problems, uh, remediates them or adapts them, and then move on to the next step. So if the child has to reach a particular step, the program inherently should be child friendly and it should be acceptable by the one who is taking care of the child, the caregivers or the family members.
Okay.
So compliance is very important, and I think even now the onus lies also on the therapist to make the program such that the compliance is highest. So for that, as simple as when we intervene, no two child is similar. So if we take two children with ADHD, their whole dynamics is different. So one has overly educated parent and one has uneducated parent. So in both the terms, the techniques used in the clinic may remain same, but the home program has to be different so that the parents or the caregivers comply to it. They understand the importance of it. So that I think responsibility is of the therapist to make uh, uh, acceptable program and sustainable program. And
Okay.
also it is on the part of the parents to
Mm-hmm.
keep it going and keep complying to the home program given.
Okay, so sir, as you mentioned that parents have to comply and how two families will have different programs, though the difficulties are similar. So in this whole process, are parents also trained in a certain way so that they can apply these strategies at home?
Yes, yes. So what we do is though there are certain clinics who do not allow parents inside the session, but there are discussions at the end of the session. Usually, in my context, I keep the parent inside the session so that they can observe the dynamics of how I am communicating or how I'm giving a cue, physical
Mm-hmm.
or verbal prompt while the child is performing, and increase the participation and increase the level of competence in the child so that they can duplicate the same kind of strategies at home. So I act as a role model while treating a child, and then the parent can pick this up, train themselves to do it. So many times that the simple change in behavior of the parent can lead to a tremendous change in the outcome of the child's performance, on the child's performance. So it's very important to train the parent to look at the child from a therapist angle, to get the outcome more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have spoken about how and when we enter in the process, and then during the process, there are some things which you mentioned that parents are supposed to do. So the next question is, how do the parents understand that they can discontinue the therapy?
Oh, discontinuation of therapy. Most of the time, it's when the therapist gets married. So, okay, to be on a serious note, yes. When does a therapy ends? If I may put it rightly, it is an ongoing process. The
Mhm.
intensity and the frequency might reduce,
Okay.
but as we all know, once a special child, there are going to be, as a child goes through different phases of development, so there are going to be newer challenges. So
Mhm.
in which the therapist, the family should be always in touch of a therapist. Maybe they might meet infrequently, or the intensity of sessions might reduce. But from overall development to very specific problem solving techniques, or a specific problem based intervention can be taken. Example, like to very quote the example of my own research in on adults with autism, like we work on very specific skills like communicating, making friends, finishing assignments, right? I mean, there might, as we start, we might have started grossly for improving sensory integration, improving, eye contact, improving core muscle strength, but then it moves on to basically very, a very problem specific intervention. So um, so people who have sought therapy in initial life, or are newly diagnosed, or now come up with problems or realizing problems, therapy is ongoing. It should it should um it should be taken as an SOS when required. Okay. Yeah. So also, I'm not of the idea of the child should attend therapy each and every single day, because that creates a dependency.
Mhm.
So creating a dependency in therapy means the child wants to do all the activities in a very safe environment of the clinic. So if the child gets dependent on that, again, that right challenge is not posed in when the child goes out in the environment, in the real environment, and that becomes a difficulty. So it should be judicial and just right dosage of
Mhm.
therapy sessions.
Okay.
That's also very important.
And I'm sure that in the beginning of the therapy, therapist explains the whole process to the parent so that it is not very overwhelming for the parent. Because I'm sure right now, when they are hearing all
Right.
these things, for a parent who is not accustomed with occupational therapy, it might sound overwhelming, but always the therapist is there to guide you on each and every step of the process.
Right. Right. So to an extent that we become a part of their family. So
Hmm.
it's that long process. Like I have this a child whom I have been seeing right from his age 2, and now this child is around 14.
Oh.
So right from treating this child to helping their parents form an NGO for special kids, you understand the whole process of occupational therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I want to summarize
Excellent.
this. I mean, we become a part of their existence, and they become a part of our learning to a
Right.
greater extent. Like I seldom thought that this child will, cook, or I seldom thought, but then as and when it unveiled, and as and when the parents, you know, gave a right opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and sought for suggestions, help, or participation in various tasks, and now they extend this whole to a community. So what they sought from the community, they are giving back to the community. That's whole process of as an occupational therapist. So
Right.
it
So,
just not confines to person, it just confines to the uh, whole thing around us, the
right.
whole air around us.
Correct. So I think it is not only about that particular person who is seeking therapy at that time, but occupational therapists make sure that the entire family is empowered. So the example which you quoted, in that child must have felt help, definitely, but even the parents, other family members also felt empowered to do something. So that is a wonderful journey, I must. Thank you. So, since the beginning of our interview, you have mentioned a lot of tricks which are usually around us. There is nothing that they have to go out of their way and do, but at the same time, they are very, very crucial to the overall development and overall maintenance of mental health in the family. And I'm very sure that these tips, not only during the lockdown, but our audience can maintain them throughout, so that even this adjusting to the new normal, and even after the lockdown, after this new normal, when we are adjusting to our lives, it will be very helpful for all of us. So, thanks a lot, Dr. Srihars, for being with us today. And if there are any other questions, we will get back to you in our second episode, or later on. We can schedule a different interview. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It was absolutely my pleasure. And I take it as a selfish motto to promote occupational therapy as, one of the fields of rehabilitation, which is the oldest field of rehabilitation, I must say. So thank you for your venture and I wish you all great success. Thank you.